He was the director of CFTRI, also DG of CSIR. Now, before Sir will be delivering a talk on adapting to changed climate, role of sustainable, traditional and ethnic foods. Before going to the talk, let me give a brief introduction on the achievements of Dr. Prakash sir. Dr. Prakash served as the president of International Union of Food Science and Technology for 2 years, and he was also the vice president of International Union of Nutritional Sciences for more than 5 years. Currently, he is the adjunct professor at the Institute of Chemical Technology, Mumbai. He was also the former director of CFTRI in Mysore for over a decade, and he was also appointed as a distinguished scientist of CSIR, and he also served in Council of, in fact, he was the one of the founder members of Karnataka Science and Technology, and he has guided the KSTA take up many science promotional activities, KSTA, and he continues his academic activities even today in teaching and training youngsters. In fact, for many of the conferences, trainings, and workshops of KSTA, Sir has delivered talks which are very popular. In fact, based on the request from different institutes and teaching faculty, we requested Sir to deliver two talks, one after the other. Last week he Sir delivered one talk. This week is delivering one more talk. His entire education is from University of Mysore. He has received more than 66 national and international awards. He has received coveted Bhatnagar Award for Science and Technology of India. As many of the youngsters may not know, it is the highest award given to a scientist in India. He is also the awardee of Rajyotsava given by Karnataka government, and several lifetime achievement awards from various organizations like FICCI, IUF, OST, both in India and abroad, AFST, and also I'm very proud to say that he is also a recipient of Lifetime Achievement Award from Karnataka Science and Technology Academy. He is currently serving in the editorial board of a number of food science, technology, and nutrition and traditional medicine journals, and he is also on the editorial board of a number of books globally. He was also chair of panel on nutraceuticals and served as member scientific committee of FSSAI, Government of India. He is also a fellow of most academies in India, including and also a Royal Society of Chemistry UK, IAF OST Canada, AFT USA, and he is also one of the members of one of the fellows of Karnataka Science and Technology Academy. I'm very proud to say this. Dr. Prakash has completed 52 years of his untiring service and dedication to food science, technology, and nutrition, resulting in more than 220 peer-reviewed research publications, 55 patents, nearly 30 PhD degrees. PhD scholars were guided by Sir, and 938 plus keynote, chief guest, convocation addresses he has delivered, and he is the author of more than 19 books, and 12 more books are in pipeline. He has submitted more than 40 reports to the government in various capacities on policy matters. He is also a visiting professor in a number of universities in India and abroad, and continues to uh, interface in many of the social aspects of reaching out science to people. Dr. Prakash sir has received one of the highest civilian award of the country, Padma Shri, for his outstanding scientific contribution to the nation. As I told earlier, sir had delivered a distinguished talk of KST on 30th October 2023, which was well attended by students and faculty. In fact, we are very grateful to you, sir. Many have joined on Cisco WebEx, and many more have joined on our YouTube channel also. Some of the students who could not watch on Cisco WebEx or YouTube would watch later, because we'll be uploading your talk on our website also. With this brief introduction, I request Dr. Prakash sir to take over and deliver his talk on adapting to changed climate, role of sustainable traditional and ethnic foods. In the meantime, I also welcome senior faculty. My own teacher, Dr. Shyam Sundar, Dr. Ramakrishna also have joined. Welcome to you, sir, and all the participants. Welcome to you once again. Now, over to you, sir, for your talk.
Thank you very much for that very affectionate words, and it's been a great pleasure since last week to be in two seminars, and it's a great stride. And let me first of all say good afternoon, good evening, and good morning to the global audience who are around in this attendees list. I see it's growing up logarithmically. Greeting to all of you on this 7th November, Tuesday. On the outset, I congratulate the government of Karnataka and the Karnataka Science and Technology Academy, a vibrant organization of the state, and which has now risen to a national international status. And having started this wonderful series, which takes its fellows and distinguished people in the field to give talks, the reason is focus is on PUC students who are yet to make a career, who are yet to take off. They're confused with either IT, BT, or where do I go? And this talk is not to convince them to come to food science or food and nutrition, but to tell them how vast opportunities are there in the world for them to shape their career. And wherever they go into the outlook on temporary, contemporary subject, their approach should not be only one-sided. Today, the whole world is looking at a holistic approach, including chemistry, food culture, nutrition especially, and also physics to a large extent. And nothing will move without the water. And therefore, even water is such an important subject which we need to understand more. Climate change, of course, today. And all these from astronomy to agriculture and tradition to technology is very widespread. So, my dear students and faculties, those who are stuck in their subject, who have already got an employment, don't feel that you are stuck in that subject. You have an opportunity to go to many subjects in knowing it and doing your R&D in collaboration with the institution. So this particular series of the KSTA is important for understanding the entire system of education, opportunity, science and technology, as well as an important contribution that each one of you can make. The audience has many outstanding scientists globally, and I would be certainly wrong in not mentioning their name. So let me very quickly mention their name. Many of them are my teachers, many of them are my colleagues, many of them happen to be my former colleagues, and therefore let me see whether I can remember all that. Dr. Mahatab Bamji, a leading nutritionist of India, she is there. Dr. P.G. Rao, from Australia. He represents IUFOST. Mr. Mallikarjun Rao from Andhra Pradesh, who made the midday meal function so well in Andhra Pradesh. Dr. Srinivasan, Dr. Nambiar, from formerly of CFTRI, Dr. Ramakrishna, Mr. Shyam Sundar of the Fisheries College of the University of Agricultural Sciences, and the latest to join is Professor Jeevan Sidhu from USA. Wheat Technologies and a wonderful teacher, and he has made his career and the entire world into wheat technology well understood and has worked on it. I also see Professor Murali Krishna from the formerly of DuPont. He is there. Many more are joining. That's my updated list. And perhaps this talk will be a lot of repetitions to such a light audience as the listed above. But I think we look at the students, and some of the examples I give may be at a very basic and fundamental level, and don't kind of, feel that I'm not giving a high sense. So let me emphasize again, the entire focus will be on students, number one, but I certainly will do some high science and tell in a simple language. That's the plan I have to really adapt myself. As I talk on the adapting to the changed climate, I want you to see the spelling. Normally we'll say changing climate. Normally we'll say climate changing. Normally we'll say global warming. But this is a past tense I have used, changed climate. And the role of sustainable, traditional, and ethnic foods. In the allotted time of about 45 minutes, right now it is 4:42 p.m. in India, so in about by 5:30 I should be able to finish. And let me divide my talk into 5 aspects. Number 1, I will spend about 5 to 8 minutes on climate change and changed climate. Number 2, the role of the focused actions at a personal level and from a community level and a national level. Number 3, food culture and the sustainability of it. Number 4, traditional, indigenous, and ethnic foods and practices and wisdom. Lastly, in conclusion, I will summarize in about 5 minutes the action forward for all of us at different levels. So this will be the kind of framework, the charter I have put for myself. And if my speed is more, please interrupt and say, you're speaking too fast, we cannot understand. So I'm taking a via media approach of saving time, at the same time talking at a pace which is moderate. To begin with, we need to ask the question, what is climate change? What do you mean by climate change? So many people speak about it. What do you mean by climate change? Today morning it was hot, today afternoon it rained. Is that a climate change? So therefore, the definition wise, there are hundreds of definitions, but I have picked up a little bit more simple one, that is the significant variation of average weather conditions becoming, for example, warmer, wetter, or drier, or hotter, or sea level rising. That's another, it doesn't happen in one day. And this takes decades, basically. Floods, major and abrupt changes over small number of years or even 4 or 5 decades. It is important to note that it is a long-term trend that differentiates climate change from natural weather variability locally and regionally. So what we are going to focus is what has happened in the long-term range. Let us say in the last 50 years, climate has definitely moved from one place to the other. We are still in the ice age. We have come out of it, but we are climbing now to a warmer global parameter. Let me also give a disclaimer here that I'm not a geophysicist, or I'm not an atmospheric man, and I'm not a climatologist. But what I have read is pertaining to foods, pertaining to agriculture. And therefore, these are all published, what I'm going to talk, well documented, and very few are taken from Google because I believe in a clear mandate of published literature, and also the knowledge of about 5,000 years from various documents. What are the effects of, let us say, such a climate change in several decades, maybe 100 years, 200 years, maybe 50 years? Number 1, hotter temperature due to greenhouse gas emissions, as all of you know, such as carbon dioxide and oxides of nitrogen, sulfur, etc. And these, along with pollutants, including smoke, always misses a big atmospheric change and envelops the earth into a blanket. Therefore, when the sun rays falls in, this blanket allows the sunlight and heat, but then it forms a very high bubble, and the temperature around the globe, it's not a small tennis ball, it's a huge globe, starts rising because it doesn't escape forward. It starts rebounding back from the various particles, from the various systems. So that's another seminar by itself. In other words, all this means the surface temperature of Earth starts rising. It doesn't rain by 2 degrees in one day. It goes by very little temperature rise, and finally it becomes significant. And today we are talking about different continents at 1 to 2 degree change in temperature. Number 2, first is the warmer climate. Second, more severe storms due to change in upper atmospheric convections and heat. And all this means that all of a sudden dumping of heavy rain and the huge waves from sea coming into the coastal region and also in many other tropical regions like hurricanes, and also the storms that come in excess in places like India. We call it as typhoons, or it is named as a climate, as a change that is happening in the sea, and therefore in 2 days you will get rain. But this rain is not usual. It pours and pours. Sometimes it really is in so much excess that inundation is inevitable. Villages, cities are washed away many times. So therefore, a lot of water, a lot of temperature. Number three, increased drought. There are other regions of the world which was once very, very fantastic to grow crops. Today they are turning into slowly deserts with drought. And it's very important to realize that surface temperature rise is not only the reason, but no rains, no humidity, and that shifting of the pattern. And a lot of these effects are on the food culture, what the local region was growing. I'll come to that a little bit later when I talk about traditional foods and ethnic foods from such regions. So the people there have to change their habit, otherwise there is no survival at all. So that's number three. Number four, a warming and rising ocean due to global warming meeting at this temperature, and that can be in inches, several inches a year. And that's very scary. And today it's on an average about 1 centimeter in a year. It's too high, too high. For about 50 years, it's a meter. If the sea rises by a meter, it's going to be very dangerous. In some places, especially in lagoons, it can even go up to 2 centimeters, 3 centimeters all of a sudden. So therefore, it is important that this aspect has to be taken care because of the melting of the glaciers with the overall global warming. Number five, effect of climate change, loss of species due to all above effects, all the five effects I told you, either in land or sea or soil microbiota. Therefore, this completely changes the ecosystem. And ecosystem is something that cannot be imbalanced all of a sudden, but a moderation has to happen. And all this, as we know, is not only just human beings, but also many other things such as forest fire, volcanoes, even to a large extent, natural floods that happen and so on. And therefore, in not blaming only humans, but there is also natural catastrophes that bring in these changes in the system. But to a large extent, human being is responsible. So therefore, we are talking about this very importantly. The above will have effect on the total food grown, that is the number six effect on the globe, decreasing its yield, productivity, and also obviously the total production. So those countries which were self-sufficient once upon, maybe 50 years back, 40 years back, 30 years back, no longer are. They cannot grow some crops. There is a shift in the pattern because the groundwater is all taken away in about 20 years. So not much can be grown in that area. So there's a shift in the pattern. So the self-sufficiency parameter goes. So the drought kind of a situation, even though there's no drought, the crop cannot be grown. More health risk and conducive environment for infectious bacterial system will also pervade because of the increase in temperature. And therefore, the tropical temperature zones and even temperate zones will have an effect on these infectious, bacterial, fungal, and even to a large extent viral effects that can get precipitated to a large extent. And therefore, it has an effect on the society, causing a health breakaway into the system. And very difficult to understand why this is happening many a time. Number 8 is poverty and displacement. As a result of drought, as a result of floods, as a result of many other issues like a kind of a contagious disease that spreads all of a sudden in 40 villages, people migrate to cities. But once they migrate, poverty and displacement, and at the same time, the issue of the entire job opportunities, less income, and the whole system of psychological chaos of that movement and migration can make life miserable. So all this, we would never know that it is due to climate change, but we see that happening. But in fact, a lot of it does happen because of many of the climate changes and urban conglomerates and also slums that suddenly appear overnight. Other effects such as automobile increase in the world, and at the same time many other ways of industrial heat that generates, and that will increase the overall temperature at the surface, which also will be spreading up into different regions of the same country. But at the same time, it is also vital to realize that the human intervention on those systems are almost 100% rather than any natural system that intervenes and raises the temperature. So therefore, this overall energy and the nature's angriness many times, like forest fire all the way, even though it may be due to human, but sometimes it is due to friction between the two trees and it triggers. And we really look at the changed climate. The climate has changed. We know that. All this is happening, what I mentioned. So there is a changed climate. Now let us say, well, you keep quiet and during COVID everything came back. It's an oversimplification. Only the atmosphere cleared up because there was no pollution, there was no automobile driving. So many areas got clear. And therefore, it is not necessarily to immediately conclude that we have changed the climate by being inside the house. No, this climate that has changed is rather irreversible, not possible to reverse it for the next 50 years. That's why UN has calibrated a time like 2070. Whatever you're doing, you need to achieve it by 2070. Therefore, it is a slow process, and that slow process is not guaranteed. And what will we do with those nearly 50 years? We are already almost 47 years there. And that is what need to be addressed very clearly. How do we really look at this changed climate into a situation where we look at how do we really adapt rather than adapt to this situation and still change our lifestyle for a better lifestyle and make sure we don't emit so much of pollution, pollutants, chemicals, and also create a lot of GHG, greenhouse gases, and which in turn creates an increase in temperature. So therefore, how do we address, as we give correction, we have to survive also in these 50 years. Not that we, maybe the next generation also have to survive. So therefore, how do we really address this reversibility in the next 50 years, but at the same time, running our life in a different way to give that correction. At the same time, also, this process, the lifestyle and recalibration of our life, both individually and as a group, over the next generation almost, is vital. And that is not easy because it's also important for us to realize that many things are not easy to change. It becomes a second habit. And therefore, it's vital for us to realize that those, let us say, those who are eating rice and those who are eating wheat and those who are growing wheat and rice in areas which have no water supply and taking the borewell water is a disaster welcoming. So how do you change that? Can you ask a farmer to grow whatever you want to grow? Well, he has a problem. So it's a very complex situation, not easy, and everybody has the freedom to do what he needs to do, what he wants to do, or what she wants to do. But ultimately, it has to be an atmosphere that we need to create amongst ourselves to combat this and make it come back. This combat to combat hopefully will be successful provided we have a good amount of structured situation and a policy which is very strict. This I'm talking with a clear, a pathetic view what has happened over the last 100 years. It need not have happened. It could not have happened if we had taken correction, but it has happened. And now that it has changed, it has also changed the food habits, the food and nutrition schedule, the way we eat, what we eat, the sustainable food systems, the emergence of new challenges, for example, as all are related. To position ourselves with these things, United Nations in 2015 made the Sustainable Development Goals, realizing that these are all part of a bigger problem. It is not that you solve one problem in one city or one village or in a country, but it is a much more different phenomena that all are together as one cluster. A small equilibrium change in one place will completely displace the equilibrium of the entire system. So therefore, it's a very tricky situation. A little bit ambitious deadline they have put is you have to achieve all this by 2030. The countries are struggling, and of course, India is doing very well to reach there, but still, we have a long way to go. But we need to work every day on it. There are 17 SDGs, or the Sustainable Development Goals. I don't want to go into detail to each one of them, but as students of science, these have to be heard at least once in the memory so that it triggers your memory how we are interconnected and how we are fused into one system. And this is just not exactly 17 different types, but these are 17 things that does interact with each other and creates a different goal altogether. Number one, by 2030, Sustainable Development Goal is declared by the United Nations with all the countries agreeing. No country did disagree. Number one is no poverty. It's not poverty reduction, no poverty, 2030. Number two, zero hunger, not less hunger, zero hunger by 2030. Number three, good health and well-being. These are all the words used by the United Nations in the Sustainable Development Goal chart. So good health and well-being. Number four, quality education. Why we require quality education in a sustainable development goal? Because that brings in awareness, that brings in responsibility, that brings in knowledge, that brings in wisdom, experience. So therefore, it is very important that quality education makes a difference. Number five, gender equality. I'm particularly attracted to this because as student and a junior colleague of Dr. Mahata Bamji, who always has fought her life for gender equality. It's so important. It's not that it is done less. It was never done earlier, and now only there is a slight awakening and happening. And I'm very glad this we are addressing in India in a different way, but very slow still. I hope we can increase the speed. Number six, clean water and sanitation. Of course, this is related to health because if the water is not clean, all other problems of sanitation, then different diseases will come. Number seven, affordable and clean energy. Today we are moving from a fossil fuel all the way to the CNG, to electric, and we are moving down to hydrogen. So clean energy appears to be one important step, and that is one goal of the sustainable development. Number eight, decent work and economic growth. This is as a result of many steps this will happen, because if the work is not of a level to which a person is to work, he will have difficulty in making both ends meet. So therefore, it is important to keep this in mind as a goal. Number nine, industry, innovation, and infrastructure. The three I's of Sustainable Development Goal, not ES, but capital I. Industry, innovation, and infrastructure. It is very difficult to survive in society without industry, because without industry, you can't get products. And you can't make all the products that you need, including the rice or wheat that you need. You can't grow yourself. Somebody has to grow, somebody has to mill it, and so on. And therefore, it is important that this is also a part of the total system. Number 10, reduced inequality. This inequality is not only of gender, we mentioned in point number 5, but also inequalities of income, inequalities of the urban and rural, and inequalities of different segments of population doing different kinds of work. So therefore, it is vital that these inequalities are minimized to a large extent to bring on par with each other so that we are all on one table on the matter of income. Number 11, sustainable, all the system has to be a sustainable one. Sustainable systems, I would rather put in a broader sense. It has to be sustainable systems. It cannot be unsustainable. We can't be using wood for fire today to cook. It's no longer sustainable. So therefore, even the gas that we are using can be replaced with a different thing. Of course, electricity is too costly. So how do we do a sustainable system approach for all the approaches that we are doing? Number 12, responsible consumption and production. This is very important. It applies to agriculture, it applies to industry, it applies to every aspect of life. So it has to be a responsible consumption. I have money, so I can buy 1,000 ties. That's not the issue. The issue is how much you need, reduce your consumption a minimum so that the global energy is not utilized for you more than what you need. And the production also. Unnecessary production with the carbon footprint being so high gets stocked up and you lose that energy in a short time of period from the system and adding on to Earth's energy, making it warm. Number 3, climate action. Climate action, there is a charter and people are working on that and a lot of national policies are being framed and it is very vital for us to really look at this also many times, reports and so on. We may be a nutritionist, we may be a food technologist, we may be a physicist, a chemist, and it's important for us to read these policy matters and briefs. Number 14, life below water, like ocean, rivers, ponds, lakes, etc. And that is very important for the ecosystem to be moderate with each other and not kill the system by pollution, by many other things, because each are interrelated to one another. Of course, life on land is number 15. This includes human too. We can't forget that we are not life on the earth, on the land. So it is vital that we ourselves may perish if we neglect ourselves, our activities today. Number 16, peace, justice, and strong institutions. And these institutions, when I say it is not like one academic institution, these are institutions, global institutions, such as World Health Organization, Food and Agricultural Organization, UNDP, UNIDO, etc., etc. These are all United Nations organizations which do policies, and peace and justice and strong institutions are very vital to uphold regulatory systems. Lastly, partnership for the goals. We just now saw in the G20 meeting in India, many countries came in and partnered to work together on many goals, including biofuel, for example. So therefore, such partnerships are going to be the ultimate way of working and not in isolation and silos. Therefore, these 17 are very important for us to keep in mind as we talked about climate change. There's about 10 points, what has happened, and we are also importantly taking the stock of these 17 points of sustainable development goal. Any one goal is mishandled or manhandled in a wrong way, it can affect the other goals very badly, very badly. So therefore, these are interrelated and a cascading effects for a country, for a region, and for the global pattern itself. And therefore, it is vital for us to recalibrate ourselves with the climate change action points that we discussed and with sustainable goal. And therefore, my 50% of the talk at this point is completed, but I will now focus on food culture, traditional, indigenous, and ethnic food. And how is it related to our sustainable development goal on the one side, which also incorporates climate change, and the second one is the climate change, which has changed now, and how does it affect our system? Therefore, when we look at traditional, indigenous, and ethnic food, for this talk, I would, and many of my reviews, I have used the word TIEF, called TF, TIEF, TF, TEF pronunciation, but it's actually TF, TIF, TIEF, traditional, indigenous, and ethnic foods. It's vital that thousands of years, India has really been the destination and documentation to values of food. Whether you go to 2000 years old Charaka Samhita or Shushruta Samhita, it is not 2000 years old. Even we are wrong in telling like that. Many people in India do say that. It's about 6,000 years of knowledge, but written 2,000 years back. A PhD thesis written on the last year doesn't mean only in 1 month it was done or 1 year. It is a 5-year hard work of the guide and the student. So it is similarly these documentaries and these granthas and these huge volumes of documentation are not just 1 year's work or 10 years work or 20 years, 100 years work. It's a huge knowledge from generation to generation imbibed, and somebody has taken the trouble to document. There may be some errors in that, but doesn't matter. But somebody has taken the trouble of documentation. Therefore, when we look at Charaka Samhita, Sushruta Samhita, which is more medical, but much more related to many of the Patyas and so on, that is rigor in food consumption. Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, which are more than 100 in number, which says many things about the health and condition and the intermittent fasting that one has to do and so on. Ahara Adhikaranam, which keeps the science of food into a ball where you can understand the science of interaction, of compatibility of food to that of synergy of symbiosis of food. And we have, Bhojana Kutuhalam, curiosity of Bhojana, which is food in wholesomeness. There is a curiosity there. Every time you see something, there's a curiosity. That curiosity is not that meal curiosity, it is a generation curiosity into the food. So therefore, all this with Kshema Aharam, which is the document, which is safe food, and also Pakashastra, which is cuisine. How do you cook different ingredients? And what is the sequence of adding these ingredients? And what kind of vessels you use? Use a copper vessel, iron vessel, and of course at that time there was no stainless steel. But many such vessels are depending upon the temperature you want to reach and how long it can retain the heat. Some of them are stonewares basically, which keep the heat longer. It becomes slow cooking and the taste is different. Well documented in Pakashastra. All this captures this huge knowledge of 5 to 6,000 years, and especially in this part of the world. But that doesn't mean that there are other parts of the world which didn't do anything. We still remember the huge amount of culture, food culture in the Mediterranean region, and especially in the African countries, much more. Very, very huge amount of traditional knowledge that is there. Many times they might not have been documented, but the culture has remembered that, passed on from generation to generation. We also see in Central America, in Maya civilization, etc., a huge amount of such documentation, but not so rigorous as much as Indian or Chinese or Southeast documentation. We see in the Latin American countries and to a large extent in the Southern Europe such kind of documentation which are there, not only from a procedural protocol and public use wise, but also in terms of how best you can pass on from generation to generation, even the culture to ferment a food. It's unbelievable how these are traditionally practiced, especially it may not be the correct example, but just to make all of you feel lighter, for example, the wine industry is a home secret. Similarly, the cheese industry in Parma, in Italy, is a home industry. Home industry doesn't mean somebody is doing it home, but it's a culture belonging to that family. So therefore, it is unbelievable how these are preserved and carried on, because these are complex cultures for fermentation. And therefore, all these means when we talk about TF, we are talking about food, we are talking about nutrition, and we are talking about nutrigenomics too, to a large extent. So therefore, this knowledge have not only been captured, but it also has a symbiosis with health, nutritional quality, I'm calling, and the safety aspects of food. But over the last 50 years, something strange has happened in this world. We have stopped documentation. We have done individual documentation. We publish a paper, we publish a book. But as a nation, where do we have a repository of the various dishes how it is cooked, and so on. Even though CSR made an attempt about 25 years back into doing TKDL, which is Traditional Knowledge Digital Library. Those are the youngsters who want to go to CSR website and click on TKDL, you can click. And you will get a large amount of information, not only on food, on silk industry and weaving industry, and the way you grow a plant, etc. And it also talks about geographical appellation, geographical indicators, and so on and so forth, which are all important for a country and for the region to be very proud of. So therefore, all this has a role to play. But when we look at climate change, what can happen is the quality of the raw material may change over the period of climate change, number one. Number two, many of the microbes will change and alter their properties themselves by mutating. And these microbes, which are very important for us, are the probiotics and the prebiotics and the postbiotics. All have an effect on living microorganisms, can have a very, very different effect than what it was 50 years or 100 years back. We already started seeing that, basically. There is good documentation in the scientific world. If I say food connects people, it's not wrong. But food also takes us back to history, where the engineering part of food, which is quite complex in the traditional food, and the scale up of cooking in large volumes, fascinates anybody. The way it was done was so well described, including the dimension of the vessel. It's not in centimeters or millimeters or inches, but it is a measure that can easily be reproduced. So, for example, half the length, half the height of a human being, but the size of the vessel diameter. So it's more or less okay. Not that you measure it by humans, but at least you take it in that sense. So therefore, these are all have bearing. And on the millions of documents that we have today, we have about 1.1 million documents very well describing what is happening or what happened in those countries and regions in a particular period where there was a renaissance of the food culture. There was a rethinking and reigniting that knowledge and revisiting that knowledge. So this has happened in India too. Not that India is an exception, but it is also happening, it happened in many other countries. Therefore, people have come to realize that by visiting these documents, by seeing it, and aligning with the modern tools and the modern science, not that the modern science will prove the history, but the modern science will help in understanding better. And if we can do something with less carbon footprint, yes, let us do that. And probably traditional and indigenous foods, which are also laborious many times to cook and make it, probably is one way where we can use as much of like fermentation, pickling, another example, and many other foods that are made to really with the remaining food in the kitchen. They're all examples of how we conserve and not waste many of the food products which are very costly to grow. But in all this, I want to mention one book of Dr. K.T. Achaya, formerly of CFTRI and IICT Hyderabad. He wrote a book on history of foods, and in that, he brought out how food culture, ingredient, and the sequence of addition, and the shelf life, and the method of cooking, either roasting or boiling or frying, steaming, sun drying, pickling, fermentation, addition of spices, salt, at what level, at what point. He just documented a few dishes from here and there. I mentioned in my last talk on the 30th of October one example of idli. Idli really originated somewhere in Indonesia, Malaysia, traveled through Myanmar, Thailand, came to Northeast India, came down to West Bengal, and then the earlier, East Pakistan, and then came down. Not that it is a modern way. Even before even the states and countries were bordered, the food had started traveling. And therefore, today we can say this route it take, but it did not take that route. It took a route 500 years back. and finally came to the present Orissa, Andhra Pradesh, and settled down in the north, south of Andhra, south of Karnataka, north of Kerala, and north of Tamil Nadu. Why? Because there is a huge concentration of rice which is needed to make good idlis. So it stayed there. But now to idli is almost an international dish, and it's very easy to really do that. But why I want to mention is even some people like Dr. Achaya who have taken so much trouble. I think today we require more people to address this on the shelf life in terms of modification, manipulation of many of these microorganisms, what is happening with climate change, and the enzyme synthesis in a particular fermentation broth will completely change because we can't have a fermenter in every house and control the temperature. The outside temperature decides the fate of that batter next day morning. Ultimately, all this may be lost in 100 years or 80 years from now. So we may be losing a very, very precious microorganisms which are needed for many of the traditional foods and so on. But apart from that, we may lose varieties of grains. We may lose varieties of spices. We may lose species of spices. We may lose species of fungus. We may lose species of mushroom because of the small alteration in temperature. Therefore, this has a direct effect on the nutrition. It has direct effect on the wellness, immunological properties, and the prevention of diseases, and also to make sure that the enough scientific evidence, if it is not correlated together today and save some of those situations, we may be feeling completely sorry in about 50 years why we didn't do it. I'm sure with today's new technologies of digitization of AI, IoT, then also to a large extent machine learning, we can do a lot of application in conservation of this technology, scale up in engineering moderately, mass manufacturing by industries of traditional, indigenous, and ethnic foods to be made popular everywhere with safety aspect well controlled. And also, all this can be used to prevent losses and waste to make a sustainable and critical changing situation of the climate at this time, even though a major part of the climate has changed, but still the worst has to come. And we need to be very careful that we should not lose these traditional and indigenous and ethnic foods, even by chance. And therefore, a big mission mode program may be very essential for a country like India. I don't know about other countries what they will do, but at least we can do it in India. Hopefully, it will get a good support. The health aspect of traditional food is very well documented in many of the media protocols, YouTubes, etc. And I will leave it to you to see all that in a way it should be done. Uh, Coming to the last about 15 minutes or so of my talk, 10, 12 minutes, I want to give 3, 4 examples of how India took the initiative and is leading in the world in traditional foods. Number one is in the year 2001, the government decided to do some kind of a supplement to school children to encourage them to go to school. And that was called as MDM, midday meal. And the Pradhan Mantri Poshan Shakti Yojana, which today has allocated more than 11,600 crores, and it has about approximately, 15 crore of children, one way or the other, getting, including Anganwadis, directly or indirectly. And this has helped the country in looking at these numbers very carefully. And India is number one in this, in the midday meal. So whether you like it or not, every school day, the midday meal goes to a government school or a government assisted school. And not that there are poor students or economically backward students in other schools, but invariably it so happens that the economically backward situation of the poorer section of the population cannot afford the costly schools, so they are there. So a good amount of nutrition goes, but still there are challenges of proteins being short there, and all this is compensated and slowly improvement is happening. And I'm glad to say we are in a better position than we were when we got independence, far, far better. And therefore, When we do all this for about 130 million children in about 1.3 million schools, it's a mega task, mega task. Imagine how it is done. And about nearly 80 different kinds of traditional foods are served in all these midday meals, depending upon the region. If you take rice and give it to somebody in one state of the country which doesn't eat rice, it doesn't make sense. You have to give a jawar roti to some children who eat jawar. So such kind of fine tuning has happened. And government has taken cognizance, even though nutrition is a state subject, but central government still gives the money. But many of the states are doing very well. They have taken this very seriously. I should really say all this is policy matters, and it has become now a very routine thing of how it goes every day. Getting one of the best, rice, one of the best dals that you can think of in the public distribution system. I'm not telling that everything is fine. There are some hitches, there are some cough ups here and there, but overall, it's a good stand. We are doing fine. Let us not be negative. Let us be over positive and say we are doing fine and we take it forward better. To make better than the best should be our protocol rather than negative points. And of course, we need the negative points to improve, but we can't brood over it and continuously discuss in all our evening tea discussions. But the beauty of Indian midday meal compared to other meals in the world is it is traditional food. It is scaled up in small cooking factories. It cooks about 50,000 or 75,000 meals, and it is prepared fresh, transported in speedy and special vans, served hot in the school at 12 o'clock, and is an excellent example of what India has achieved, which no other country is able to achieve, even though when we started this, we were on the outer edge of a underdeveloped country. So nutritionists in this country have played a great role, great role. They made the policy, the government has taken it very seriously. Hats off to teachers who are hearing us today. They're the ones who made it happen at the school, and thanks to the parents who have sent their children. So many a times I wonder, how did we do? And all this magnitude, less talked globally. And if I was in the Nobel Committee, I would have given the Nobel Prize to India, but I'm not. So therefore, probably we would never get a Nobel Prize. That doesn't matter. We will have our children highly nutritious food being eaten, become more smarter cranially and health-wise. The second point I want to talk about is farmers' welfare, which is primary to us. The farmers' family welfare is another important program without which all programs will come to a dead end. Please remember, 80% of the industries in the world are food industry, not automotive, not Boeing aircraft or Airbus aircraft. It is food industry, which is 80% of the industries in the world. And 100% of the food is grown by the farmer, whether it is in US or India. So therefore, the farmer who lives on a meager income is growing and giving it to the rest of the world. And therefore, his family has to be happy. And what are we doing for his family to be happy? Of course, there are a lot of Prime Minister Yojanas now, which are reaching the unreachable, but still more to happen. And I feel in this, there are 5 Ds, A, B, C, D, capital D has to happen. One is continuous discussion amongst the scientists of what needs to be done to make the farm, even though there are claims in government to make the farmer's income double. But I strongly feel it's the farmer's profit which has to double more than the income. The income is inflation correction missing. So profit. The farmer's profit has to double. And therefore, we need to discuss amongst ourselves. We need to also take some unilateral decisions based on science and say, hey, this is possible. And be in contact with the government. Number 3, distribute the knowledge at different sources at the bottom of the pyramid. Dedication to this commitment. In fact, if you really look at the history of midday meal, the role played by National Institute of Nutrition, which is an ICMR outfit, and the role played by CFTRI, which is a CSIR outfit, is many a times it is done without a project because it is a passion that drove it. It is a policy from the government that drove it. It was not necessarily a full-scale project has to be made. It has run for 20 years, 25 years. And therefore, that dedication has to be there continuously. And lastly, doubling of that success figure. If you are able to do in one state, can we not multiply into other states in a span of 5 years? Every state is there. So I think this applies to nutrition and this applies to a relevant food science, scale up in food technology, and so on. With about 890 wheat mills in the country, most of the wheat mills, do you know, are in South India, not North India. If I consider India, the separating between North and South, just for this talk, it's very important because we import a lot of wheat. We also export wheat. It's much easier to get a wheat in Chennai and go to that mill rather than transport wheat from Punjab to this, even though Punjab now grows more of paddy, which is much more remunerative. And therefore, it's all because of this shift in the climate change that people have even changed the agricultural motto and the crops that are grown. And all this has to be economically driven, and the population centers, including rural India and city India, has to really support this from a different angle. Number three, computational gastronomy is very important to understand. The reason I'm telling is the absorption of nutrients and nutraceuticals, because we only talk about nutrition most of the times. We talk about carbohydrates, fats, protein, vitamins, and minerals, which is good. That is important, very important for the growth of the body and health. But a fad today exists that don't eat carbs. You will put on weight. But my dear sir and madam, carb is not rice. Rice has so many other ingredients. So therefore, just labeling rice oneself as carb is not correct. Without carbs, your gut microorganisms will die. So it's important that in slimming or trimming, we should not neglect the gut health. That's where computational gastronomy plays a big role today, and the need for urgent attention for that subject to develop. Many of the youngsters in PUC today can make a career out of it if you are in IT and biotechnology, BT, and in terms of IoT. So therefore, it is important for us to really look at TIEF as important contributor to the gastronomical richness of the gut microbiome, which is more than 9 trillion organisms. As one of the guru, Dr. Ashok Vaidya, always says, more than 9 trillion organisms in our gut, in the whole abdominal area. That's a big army, right? 9 trillion is a huge army. And therefore, all this means that the entire system, that you may become a computer engineer, you may become a biotechnologist, but you can always integrate your career with the beautiful subject of nutrition, wonderful subject of food science, and the computational biology to make it happen. And to that, you can really induce yourself into one point that you have to remember is focus on affordable nutrition, please, at any cost. Nutrition cannot be 200 rupees a piece of bread because high fiber, contains millet. I don't want, you have to pay 200 rupees for a loaf of bread. No, nutrition has to be affordable. Very important for India. And also in its whole production chain, is there a gender equality? We have to ask that question. Give a credit for that. Double star if there is gender equality. No star if there is no gender equality. Unless we do these regulations in a different way, we won't have the opportunity to win over our own sustainable development goals into societal wisdom, cascading into empowerment at the multi-area, just like the multi-grain bread, which hardly has any multi-grain, but it's labeled as multi-grain, but the cost is almost 100 rupees a loaf, which is very small. Therefore, you students and faculty should look the wide spread of subject from art to archery, agriculture to aerospace, farm to folk, very important, not F-O-R-K, F-O-L-K, folk. Nature to nurture, to nutrition, I'm telling, invitation to good science, leading to huge intuition and ultimately innovation coming out of it. Very important. Empowered to enabling is possible. Mind mastery to mitigating misery, and managing self to motivating society is all one's own policy that you have to make. Humble beginning to humble end. All these have to be kept in mind. Not that you will have to do everything yourself, but wherever you are, you can do this very clearly in a passionate way. And that's very important, to be passionate. I would like my last point of those 4 points is antibiotic residues in agriculture and animal kingdom, both in ocean and land, today is becoming detrimental. And the entire effect on the TIEF, which is very rich in microbes most of the time, is going to be a very, very dangerous phenomena of the AMR. If you put a batter for fermentation today, it may not ferment at all. At a time will come, because the yeast that is there may not be able to multiply. So therefore, we are looking at contamination not only of pesticides, fungicides, herbicides, insecticides, microplastics, and antibiotic residues and chemical ingredients, from fertilizer all the way to air pollution. The chances are good that we may lose those organisms for good. So therefore, we need to really address AMR. And this issue of Chemistry World from Royal Society of Chemistry has dedicated a whole issue of Chemistry World to AMR, which is antimicrobial resistance. I would like to sum up by telling traditional foods and food safety are important, whether climate change or no climate change, and regulatory aspect of it. In fact, in the year 2000, CFTRI took a massive list of traditional Indian foods, whether it is bhujia or sev or whatever you call it, all the Indian traditional foods really have now captured the world market to Codex. We took it to Codex, got the Codex inclusive on that, and therefore today what you see is instant traditional foods, convenience traditional foods, 1 minute traditional foods, all are available in global corners, cross-ventilating foods, and in the air at 35,000 feet, you can have a small container which gives you fresh smelling upma in 5 minutes with boiling water. What a way traditional food is flying at that height. It's unbelievable. India has done it. Let us be proud. But the cost of that is very high. But that's the part we are able to do. And therefore, all this main science and technology has flagged a huge role, a very, very huge role in our societal charisma, the societal transformation, the induction of people like me from chemistry to food science. Food is so complex. It's very easy to derive an equation, a binomial equation for a single polymer or a multi-polymer or a two polymer, five polymer. But food is so complex, you can't derive an equation. Therefore, it is vital that we engulf ourselves into a huge job in making our scientists, our technologists, our engineers, and to a large extent our nutritionists. And we have seen, including the medical doctors today during COVID, and all of them came together, and they're all into the same band, from the big spectrum, from farmer to the soldier, Jai Jawan to Jai Kisan. They're all these 4 or 5 people, and the class of people who are working are all important. Not that others are unimportant, others are in fact maybe more important, but these have made life better. We are able to combat with the vaccine, with the biotechnology innovations on the CRISPR technology. I would say, in conclusion, let us revisit the agricultural practices, soil microbiota, soil health, water conservation, and make it sustainable for the traditional food, conserving the traditional knowledge related to climate change. Climate change has brought in a large number of drought-resistant crops, pre-processing for value addition, and all these need to be transformed, especially from Indian Council of Agricultural Research. A lot of these have happened, which are really worthy to note, and how we have been able to sustain it in spite of the changed climate. we have been doing very good, and prevent the food losses and waste through sustainable integrated approach, collaborating through communicative skills and awareness, and preserve the 6,000 years of knowledge and make it better to the society to reach. Water footprint for each ingredient has to be carefully done. We also know that every small cloth that you wash may take out about 300 liters of water. And therefore, is there a better way? Today we have washing machines which washes with air. And all these innovations have come to a point where energy should also be calculated per unit, whether it is one slice of bread or one roti, we need to calculate that energy. Then only earth can become sustainable, and not that we have innovated something which takes more energy but less water. It should be a big umbrella to survive. As my friend Jivan Sidhu says, that the world will vanish if we don't pay attention to traditional and indigenous and ethnic foods. If we neglect it, we may be in trouble. So therefore, even though industrialization has happened of the traditional, indigenous and ethnic food, but in the changed climate scenario, it requires a revisit to recalibrate, to make the local foods go forward at the same time, not making the local people starve, but making the business stronger. Healthy diets with affordable nutrition is a message that is very important, and including the medicinal chemistry, disease manifestation of each of the organism, chemistry of each organ, food chemistry and physiological chemistry has to be in the curricula. And if we have never seen inside a human body during our whole life, how do we respect our body? So inside organs has to be shown at the high school level to give indications of what we are made up of. We never have that in the syllabus, even in the new syllabus, but I think we should do that. And I wish the PUC students have a visit to the local medical college. Don't get scared with a dead body, but is cut, but look at it from a scientific angle. And all this means that on the damage change climate situation, we are staying on an earth which is damaged. And that means we are standing on a glass which is broken, which is very dangerous. And we need to realize the seriousness of this. And the biodiversity of microorganisms will vanish. And we know that for sure. And so what we can do to save this is very important. There's also a big project of Future Earth and Save the Planet 2050. But I think more slogans and more campaigning than the money available to work. Even for a small nutrition project, we don't get enough money to work. So therefore, it is vital for a sustainable health, wellness sector, generic processing. Action points are very, very important. And the current know-how, show-how, do-hows have good amount of science in it. They are not empirical. And I think we should document that and look at practices of co-production and knowledge game changer in future. There's also a new issue of future knowledge co-production, which involves many sectors for a holistic approach, harnessing both solar and non-conventional energy sources to minimize the fossil fuel. And I think there is a tremendous amount of potential in this that has already shown. My own house, we cook on the solar cooker, which just costs 1,200 rupees. Put dal, vegetable, and rice in one 4 vessel, open it to sunlight. Whenever it is there, we can use it 200 days a year, and it's ready in about 2 hours. So I think it all depends upon what's your. But one of the institution NGO organization I worked, we made a solar cooker there, and it was very wonderful for midday meals, and it worked beautifully well. But at some point of time, it requires funding, it requires a lot of handholding, and all that means the WEC, which I call, it is the water, energy, and the carbon footprint. WEC is very important to evaluate. This adapting together to the new change climate is very vital, and is possible only if we consolidate concerted approach, complementary angle of working, coordinated mission, cumulative and conscious actions as we go forward. I would like to wind up by telling that the world has many, many solutions to a few problems. We need to revisit our food culture. for sustainable wellness and food and nutrition security. And in that process, adapt for future for sourcing local solutions for solving global problems, and vice versa maybe. We need to connect, collaborate, and communicate and cooperate locally and globally to achieve a sustainable capacity building, which is you students are the capacity building, to hand over the baton of reversing the climate change in the next 50 years. Hopefully, we also protect our traditional and indigenous and ethnic foods in this process. I have the confidence that the younger generation are more capable than us because there are more tools with them and they have a determination to do, they will do better than us. We have done our job, but now we have to take the baton from us and move forward. And I'm sure you all realize when I talk about agriculture, I would talk about Professor Swaminathan, who is no more. When I talk about nutrition, I talk about Professor Gopalan, who both are very famous globally over India. And when I talk about cooperation, I remember Dr. Varghese Kurian. What a cooperative movement he put. 22 years, we are number one gold medal Olympic in milk production. Today we are 224 million tons, just as about last month per year. Number one in the world. But still our productivity is low. Imagine our productivity going up. Will be like 500 million tons. It's difficult to catch India, provided India determines to win. If India determines not to win, nobody can help. But let me tell you, we are in the right place, right time, and at the right place. And I'm sure we can do better. And we continue to do better. And I'm hopeful that the KSTA, which has arranged this, has taken trouble to train the youngsters. It's our job to talk a few words. And perhaps I took more than what I intended to take. That's what happens when you dive deep into a passionate subject. You become over passionate and the compassion flows from behind. Thank you very much for your patience. And I will hand over to the organizers to carry on the discussion. I'll be very happy to answer any questions within the stipulated time. Thank you.
Sir, thank you very much for a very scholarly and insightful talk on adapting to change climate and role of sustainable traditional ethnic food. In fact, you gave spoke on the difference between climate change and change climate, then focused action, food culture, traditional and indigenous ethnic foods, and finally you spoke on antibiotic residues in food and action forward. In fact, many of the students and research scholars, young teaching faculty who have joined for this webinar will be highly benefited by your talk, sir. On behalf of KSTA and all the attendees, I thank you immensely for this super talk. Thank you very much, sir. Now I request our former member of KSTA, Professor S.K. Saidapur sir is there. As you know, he is also a Bhatnagar awardee. May I request Saidapur sir for your talk, for your words, sir?
Well, this is
Namaskara,
surprise to me.
Saidapur. Namaskara.
Hello, sir. How are you?
Namaskara.
Am I audible?
Yes, sir. You are audible.
Okay. It was, of course, a great pleasure listening to Dr. Prakash after a long time. And I must say that it was very not only informative and educative, but his last few comments very inspiring also. So I think that was the best part of it. I really greatly enjoyed. I cannot add much to what he has said. It was a wonderful talk. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. We have with us former Director of Zoological Survey of India, Dr. Ramakrishna with us. Sir, for your words, Ramakrishna sir. Unmute, sir. Unmute. Sir, ಕೇಳಿಸ್ತಾ ಇಲ್ಲ. Yes, sir. ಕೇಳಿಸ್ತಾ ಇಲ್ಲ ಇನ್ನು. In,
Sir, we are unable to hear you, sir.
ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇಲ್ಲ. We have with us Dr. Shyam Sundar sir from College of Fisheries. Sir, Ramakrishna sir, ಕೇಳಿಸ್ತಾ ಇಲ್ಲ. Shyam Sundar sir, for your words.
Yeah, I think it's one of the highly professorial talk which I often listen to Dr. Prakash, and this is a topic of such interest that it made me more knowledgeable, in fact, after listening to it. Thank you very much, sir, for a wonderful talk. I don't have any questions on anything like that. Thank you.
Professor Y.S. Siddegowda sir is there, former Vice Chairman of Higher Education Council and former VC of Tumkuru University. Sir, Siddegowda sir, are you there?
Good. Yes, I am here, sir.
Sir, over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. Wonderful lecture. Sustainable development goal that Professor Dr. Prakash put it in a nice way, and analyzing the facts horizontally and vertically really worth listening. And such kind of motivational talks are required through KSTA. Congratulations to KSTA and you all, sir.
Thank you, sir. Sir, Dr. Ramakrishna sir, ಇನ್ನು ಕೇಳಿಸ್ತಾ ಇಲ್ಲ. Now we have Dr. PG Rao. Dr. PG Rao sir, do you have anything? Yeah, over to you, sir.
Yeah, very good. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. I know Dr. Prakash, he will definitely give a wonderful lecture on this topic, which is very fondly to his heart. And definitely that's what I also enjoyed from the information that he has given. It's very fine. My best wishes. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Vanita Krishna is there. She is a professor at Garden City University. Dr. Vanita. Dr. Jeevan. Dr. Jeevan, would you like to say something? So, Dr. Prakash, Dr. Srinivas.
Hello, Dr. Prakash. How are you?
Yes, sir. Dr. Jeevan.
Very
Yes.
nice to see you. I'm still in the bed.
Yes, sir.
It's early morning here.
Thank you for joining, sir.
And it was a wonderful talk, Prakash. I enjoyed it. And I tell you, as you said rightly, we have to go for our traditional foods in a very scientific manner. And I'm really surprised to see lots of traditional foods available in the US market in many Indian stores. They are ready to eat. You can carry and everything there. Unbelievably. So much variety is there. So we have to go for sustainability in everything in our life. I tell you, I like your idea of sustainability. So it was a wonderful talk, and I'm more worried about healthy eating. I want people to eat healthy, and that's the scientists and nutritionists tell our public how to eat healthy. You don't spend money; you can still eat healthy with less money also. You have to make right choices to eat properly, and of course we have to do exercise. Look at Dr. Prakash, even at this age, he's so young and 5% because he does exercise, yoga, and everything. So we have to believe in physical exercise. You know, that physical exercise is the root cause of all our diseases nowadays. And another thing we have to worry about junk food. India, I think, lot of junk foods are being dumped in India, and our young children are getting addicted to it. But there are a lot of monosodium glutamate, other things, like sugar and salt, all are addictive things. So they're eating a lot of junk food. They're going away from traditional foods. They're very healthy. But idli, vada, dosa, determination of missi roti from North India, khichdi with moat and bajra. Those foods are gone. People are not enjoying those foods. This is enjoy such food. Okay, Prakash, I will not show your time. Thank you very much. Please keep on coming on the webinar again and again. Okay. Thank you, dear. Thank you very much. Best of luck.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Ramakrishna, sir.
Sir,
Dr. Ramakrishna, sir.
meanwhile, I request Dr. Omji sir to respond in the chat box by giving a virtual hand raise so that I can unmute them or I can make them panelists so that they can speak.
Dr. Srinivas.
Sir, at the outset, I would like to congratulate the organizer, Ramesh sir, and KSTA, and Professor Prakash sir for taking us a worldwide tour and discussing about the recent facts about the food chemistry, water, resource management, etc. It is highly beneficial to all of us and our student community also, sir. Thank you very much. And I congratulate one and all for this wonderful session. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. Umesh.
Dr. Wamji,
Umesh.
sir, we can't hear you, sir. Unmute, sir. Prakash, sir.
Dr. Murli Krishna, you might want to request because
No.
I see.
Yeah. Unmute Dr. Krishna.
I don't see Dr. Bamji here. I see Dr.
Yes, sir.
Murli Krishna.
Panelist mode.
Yes, sir. Unable to find them, sir.
M.M. Krishna.
Okay, sir. Yes, sir.
Dr. M.
Yeah, I'm able to unmute. Thank you very much, Dr. Prakash, for this opportunity. It's indeed a great privilege for me to listen to your oratory on this important subject. Very, very important subject on sustainability, climate change, and how and what we need to do to combat the effects of this climate change, to overcome and achieve our food security goals and hunger, free from hunger for everyone according to the UN goals, sustainability development goals. Thank you very much indeed. I think your summary is like a policy document for future action to be taken by the government to tackle these aspects of climate change and reach our goal on sustainability development goals. Thank you very much indeed, sir, for this great opportunity, and it's indeed a great privilege for me to listen to you today.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Sir, once again, thank you very much on behalf of all the participants for this very informative talk. Umesh, any other idea?
Sir, only one question we can take due to interest of time. Sir, what is your opinion on using monosodium glutamate in Indian fast foods?
There is nothing like Indian fast food. Can any breakfast be faster than upma? Please tell me. You can feed 50 people with 2 kilograms of upma in 20 minutes. So this monosodium glutamate was a controversy in 1990. At that time, I was chairing a committee and I published a book also. We made a survey of all the foods and so on. You know, the richest source of glutamate, may I know who is asking this question?
Name is not mentioned here. It is.
I would like to know the name before I answer because
yes, sir,
it's very important.
I request the person to mention their name in the chat box. Dr. Prasanna Santekadu, sir.
Okay, are you a faculty or a student? Or
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
He is a faculty, sir.
Okay. No, I just want to refer you to a lot of literature on monosodium glutamate. You know, it is not monosodium. 50% of the amino acids in all foods are glutamates. Okay. So imagine how much glutamate you must be circulating in your body. Number one. Number two, monosodium glutamate is a flavoring compound and not a salt to be added or sugar to be added to food. It's a flavoring compound. To tell in Kannada, ನೀವು ಏಲಕ್ಕಿನ ಆಹಾರದ ಥರ ತಿಂದರೆ ಕಷ್ಟ ಆಗ್ಬೋದು. ಅದನ್ನು ಫ್ಲೇವರ್ ಥರ ಒಂದು ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಹಾಕಿದ್ರೆ ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿರುತ್ತೆ. So that is the point. So it has to be in very low quantity, and that's fine. Number 3, can you imagine what is the richest source of monosodium glutamate, Mr. Prasanna? What is his name? I didn't get it. What is the name?
Dr. Prasanna Santekadu, sir.
Okay, Prasanna, what could be the richest source of glutamate in the, hello?
Hello, Dr. Prasanna Avare.
Sir, you can unmute and speak, sir.
Hello, sir.
Prasanna, what could be the richest source of glutamate in the world?
So recently they have started adding to this gobi
ಇಲ್ಲ
manchurian. all those things.
ಅದಲ್ಲ ಅವ್ರು ಆ್ಯಡ್ ಮಾಡಲಿ, ಯಾರು ಆ್ಯಡ್ ಮಾಡಲಿ. Can you tell me what is the richest source of glutamate in a food?
Plant source ಅಂತ sir.
ಯಾವುದು?
ಎಕ್ಸಾಕ್ಟ್ ಮರ್ತೋಗಿದ್ದ. ಎಕ್ಸಾಕ್ಟ್ ಮರ್ತೋಗಿದೆ ಸರ್ ನಾನು. ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್ ಸೋರ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ತುಂಬಾ ಇರುತ್ತೆ.
ಓಕೆ, ನಾನು ಹೇಳ್ತೀನಿ. ಮಶ್ರೂಮು, ಓಕೆ, ಟೊಮೆಟೊ, ಇವೆಲ್ಲ ಇರುತ್ತೆ, ಅದ್ರಲ್ಲಿ ಹೈಯೆಸ್ಟ್. ಬಟ್ ಮೋರ್ ದೆನ್ ದಟ್, ದಿ ಹೈಯೆಸ್ಟ್ ಸೋರ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಗ್ಲೂಟಮೇಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಇನ್ ಮದರ್ಸ್ ಮಿಲ್ಕ್. ಅದರಿಂದ ನೀವು ತಾಯಿ ಹಾಲ್ಗೆ ಗ್ಲೂಟಮೇಟ್ ನಮ್ಮ ತಾಯಿ ಆ್ಯಡ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ನಾನು ಏನು ಮಾಡಲಿ? ಡಿಫಿಕಲ್ಟ್ ಅಲ್ವಾ? ಸೊ ಇದು ಹೇಗೆ ಅಂದರೆ, ಏನೋ ಒಂದು ಯಾರೋ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ, ನಾವೆಲ್ಲ ಕೇಳ್ಕೊಂಡು ಹೋಗ್ತಾ ಇರ್ತೀವಿ, ಏನೋ ಒಬ್ರು ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. ಸೊ ಡೋಂಟ್ ವರಿ ಸೋ ಮಚ್. See, glutamate is a self-resisting and a self-limiting additive. ಇವಾಗ ನೀವು ಸಾಲ್ಟು 5 ಸ್ಪೂನ್ ಹಾಕ್ಬಿಟ್ರೆ ಒಂದು ನಿಂಬೆ ಹಣ್ಣು ಜ್ಯೂಸ್ಗೆ ನೀವು ಕುಡಿತೀರಾ ಹೇಳಿ ಪ್ರಸನ್ನ? ಕುಡಿಯೋಕ್ಕಾಗಲ್ಲ ಅಲ್ವಾ? ಯು ಕಾಂಟ್ ಡ್ರಿಂಕ್. ನೀವು ಹಾಗಂದ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಸಾಲ್ಟ್ ಏನು ಸರ್ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಆಗ್ಬಿಟ್ರೆ ಏನು ಮಾಡೋದು? ಯು ಕಾಂಟ್ ಡ್ರಿಂಕ್. ಸೆಲ್ಫ್ ರೆಸಿಸ್ಟೆಂಟ್ ಅದು. ಇನ್ ಅದರ್ ವರ್ಡ್ಸ್ ಇಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಸೆಲ್ಫ್ ಲಿಮಿಟಿಂಗ್ ಅಂತೀವಿ ನಾವು. ಅದರಿಂದ ಡೋಂಟ್ ವರಿ ಸೋ ಮಚ್. ಯಾರು ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಆ್ಯಡ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ತಿನ್ನೋಕ್ಕಾಗಲ್ಲ ಅಷ್ಟೇ. ಯು ಕಾಂಟ್ ಈಟ್. ಸಿಂಪಲ್ ದಟ್. ತುಂಬ ಅದನ್ನ ಯೋಚನೆ ಮಾಡಬೇಡಿ. ಆದರೂ ಕೂಡ why to load your body with glutamates too much? You already loaded with all the amino acids. Every 50% of the amino acids in the globe are glutamates. ಒಂದು ಚಪಾತಿ ತಿನ್ನಿ, ಒಂದು ರೊಟ್ಟಿ ತಿನ್ನಿ, ಒಂದು ಅನ್ನ ತಿನ್ನಿ, ಗ್ಲೂಟಮೇಟ್ ಗೋಸ್ ಇನ್. ಓಕೆ, ಅದರಿಂದ ಡೋಂಟ್ ವರಿ ಸೋ ಮಚ್. ಬಟ್ ತುಂಬ ಏನಾದರೂ ಹಾಕಿ ನಿಮಗೆ ತಿನ್ನಕ್ಕಾಗದೇ ಇರೋ ಥರ ಆದರೆ ತಿನ್ನಬೇಡಿ ಅಷ್ಟೇ. ಓಕೆ, ಸಿಂಪಲ್ ದಟ್. ಇಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಕಾಲ್ಡ್ ಎಸ್ ದ ಫ್ಲೇವರ್ ಎನ್ಹಾನ್ಸರ್ and not to worry so much. ಆ ಥರ ಇಟ್ಸ್ ಕನ್ಸಿಡರ್ಡ್ ಆಸ್ ಎ GMP, ಅಂದರೆ ಗುಡ್ ಮ್ಯಾನುಫ್ಯಾಕ್ಚರಿಂಗ್ ಪ್ರಾಕ್ಟೀಸಸಲ್ಲಿ GMP ಆ್ಯಡ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದು ಆಸ್ ಎ ಫ್ಲೇವರಿಂಗ್ ಏಜೆಂಟ್, ನಾಟ್ ಆಸ್ ಎನ್ ಅಡಿಟಿವ್. ಸಕ್ಕರೆ, ಉಪ್ಪು ಆ ಥರ ಆ್ಯಡ್ ಮಾಡೋಕ್ಕಾಗಲ್ಲ. ಇಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಎ ಫ್ಲೇವರಿಂಗ್ ಏಜೆಂಟ್. ಐ ಗೇವ್ ದ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ ಆಫ್ ಕಾರ್ಡಮಮ್, ರೈಟ್? ಫಾರ್ ಫೈರ್ಸ್ ಯು ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಆ್ಯಡ್ ಕಾರ್ಡಮಮ್. ನೀವು ಸಕ್ಕರೆ ಬದಲು ಕಾರ್ಡಮಮ್ನೇ ಹಾಕ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಸಕ್ಕರೆನ ಫ್ಲೇವರ್ಗೆ ಹಾಕಿದ್ರೆ ತಿನ್ನೋಕ್ಕಾಗಲ್ಲ ಅಲ್ವಾ? ಪಾಯಸ ಆ ಥರ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಇಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಎ ಫ್ಲೇವರಿಂಗ್ ಏಜೆಂಟ್. ಇಟ್ ಎನ್ಹಾನ್ಸಸ್ ದಿ ಫ್ಲೇವರ್, but it does not enhance any sambar flavor so much. But in terms of nucleic acid containing foods such as many of the non-veg, etc., it enhances the flavor. It gives monosodium glutamate, enhances the nucleotide flavor better. Chemistry aspect. It's a separate 1 hour class I can take you whenever you are free.
Yes, sir. I'm your student, sir.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful.
I did my MSc Biotechnology from University of
Yeah, you must have heard my talks and so on.
Yes, sir. I used to come to your office.
No, this is the truth of the chemistry. But a book has been published after that conference, and I was the editor of that book, and it's very well done. So one thing, Thai halali glutamate highest in the world, any food. Okay, ಅದು ತಿಳ್ಕೊಂಡ್ಬಿಟ್ರೆ ನಮಗೆ ತಾಯಿ ಏನು ಆ್ಯಡ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಹಾಕ್ಕೊಡಲ್ಲ ಅಲ್ವಾ? ಸೊ ಬಾಡಿಲಿ ಉತ್ಪತ್ತಿ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ ಅದು. ಅದರಿಂದ ವಿ ಡೋಂಟ್ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಟು ವರಿ ಸೋ ಮಚ್ ಆಸ್ ಪೀಪಲ್ ವರಿ. ಓಕೆ, ಡಿಫ್ರೆಂಟ್ ಲಾಬೀಸು ಅದೇನೇನೋ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ, ನಮಗೆ ಬೇಡ. ಅದು ಸೈಂಟಿಸ್ಟ್ ನಾವು ವಿ ಗೋ ಬೈ ಡೇಟಾ, ವಿ ಗೋ ಬೈ ಸೈನ್ಸ್. ಥ್ಯಾಂಕ್ ಯು ಪ್ರಸನ್ನ ಫಾರ್ ರೈಸಿಂಗ್ ದಟ್.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Umesh, any more questions?
No, sir. Over, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, before Umesh and you put the vote of thanks, I have one sentence to tell. I would like to thank all the viewers for your very, very patient hearing, I would say. I said 45 minutes, but other 1 hour agoytu. But the topic deserved it. I couldn't help. But I have a disclaimer, in the talk. What I have spoken is from the knowledge available around the world, in various books, in various papers, in various reviews, in various media, and so on. And very minimally I have taken from Google. And the views that I have expressed in this talk is all my personal understanding views. It may be wrong or right, I don't know. That's my personal views. It does not represent any institution, does not represent any industry, does not represent any nation or anybody, any individual, as a matter of fact. And therefore, I had to use this disclaimer. It's very important always. So I have thought in some way I have expressed it, and it's quite possible some of you may not agree with it, some of you may agree with it, but these are the facts. Some of them are facts. It's very difficult to set aside the facts, right, from 6,000 years. So I thank you all, and once again, Jai Karnataka and Jai Hind. Thank you. Over to you, KST. Thank you.
Sir, thank you very much once again for your very educative and informative talk on behalf of Karnataka Science and Technology Academy and all the attendees. Thank you very much. I also thank Dr. Shyam Sundar, Dr. Ramakrishna, Dr. Vanita, Dr. Jeevan, Dr. Santekadur, Dr. Srinivas, Dr. P.G. Rao, Dr. Jeevan, and all the senior faculty and scientists who have joined for this webinar. And last but not the least, my PU friends who have joined both on Cisco WebEx and YouTube platform for this talk. Thank you very much for being with us. We are grateful to you for your support always. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, sir.